Tom Hicks, CPA with JT Hicks and Company, Tax Advisors and Consultants. And today I'm bringing you a presentation about retirement plans for small businesses. Joining me on the presentation today is a guy I've known since high school. He's the principal of his own firm called Heavey Wealth Management, Rockland, Maine. Jim Heavey, thanks for joining me on the presentation today.
Tom, thanks very much for having me. Appreciate the kind introduction.
Well, glad to have you. And so, Jim, today we're talking about retirement plans for small businesses, and we've kind of narrowed our focus to just a few of the most popular types of plans. But the reason that we're doing this is that I think you would agree with me that most of our business owners and our, that are our clients and those who we'd like to be our clients, really don't have a good understanding of retirement plans. In fact, they probably have almost no understanding. And if you ask them, the man on the street, they would probably say, well, I know about IRAs and Roth IRAs, and that might be, about it. And so, in my mind, using retirement plans that are designed for small businesses is the number one way that you can help manage your tax liability. And of course, it's the number one way that you can plan for your own retirement, which I'm sure you would agree. So let's jump into it and let's talk about, what are the highlights that you would say the importance of your own retirement planning?
Well, from a tax perspective, Tom, if you are a small business owner and you do not offer a small business retirement plan, the short answer is you're paying too much in taxes. And then the other thing that we think about with business retirement plans is what are the benefits to the owner? Can you recruit, reward, and help retain key employees that make our businesses successful?
Absolutely. That's to me, nobody's going to do it for you, right? We used to live in a day like, your dad, my dad, there was your employer offered a traditional pension plan, and once you retired, you got a watch and you got a check every month, and they probably covered your medical health insurance, that sort of thing. But we don't do that anymore, right? Those kinds of things just don't exist. And so, I agree with you. A business owner needs to plan for their own retirement, and it's of course the number one way to manage your own tax liability. But providing an opportunity for your employees, right, is really something that only you can do. Like your employees can't just get together and say, "Hey, let's create a retirement plan, right, for ourselves because we need to start saving for retirement." You have to do it for them, and I think that speaks to the reward, retain, recruit, reward, and retain that you talk about quite a lot in some of our other conversations. So, this is really just an important function of business that you're just not going to be as competitive in the marketplace if you're not offering a retirement plan. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The number one benefit that employees ask for again and again are retirement benefits. And the other thing to keep in mind when you offer a retirement benefit to your employees, they will save 40% more for retirement with a business retirement plan than if they did not have that benefit. So that is a tremendous amount of extra money that they and you will be able to save.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on and start. Now our first topic is IRAs or individual retirement accounts, and most of our viewers are going to know that there's a traditional and there's a Roth, and maybe what they understand about the Roth is that they're not going to pay any taxes when they retire and start taking that money out. But an IRA account is really not a great tool for a business owner to use. Let's just say a self-employed, tradesman. It's not really a great tool to use, primarily, I guess, because some of the limits. But what do you think about using an IRA as a self-employed individual to be your retirement plan?
So anybody with income can have a Roth themselves. The only the only employee, I'm going to edit that out. Anyone that has earned income can have an IRA. So
Right.
by so there's no particular advantage for a business owner to consider this as part of their retirement. You can certainly offer it. You can have one, but in addition, if you're a business owner, that's you can have a plan that most people cannot have.
Right. You have the opportunity to
That's it.
you have more choices, right? You
Sure.
have and better choices, right? Because for most of us, there's if you're trying to get a deductible IRA, of course you have to have earned income, right? Which can come from
Right.
a W-2 form or, some form of self-employment. And then, if you're considering spouse's income, you may possibly be over the limit to make a deductible IRA contribution. So you have some hoops to jump through, right? You have to have earned income. B, your total income can't be over the limit.
Right.
Otherwise, you have to declare your contribution as non-deductible, which really doesn't help your tax situation, obviously, and that also complicates your retirement picture further off in the future because that IRA you're going to have to keep track of those non-deductible contributions because it's going to affect the taxability of those distributions as they come out at retirement. So really, I suppose if this was the only you were trying to do something at the 11th hour on April 14th or April 15th, this might be one option, but it's not really a great option. Agreed?
If you're a business owner, there are much better options than this. On the other hand, if you're a high income business owner, you may not be able to contribute to a Roth IRA
Right,
because the phase out, as you know, is at approximately 180,000 for a couple. So,
right,
and now one of the things that's interesting about you may have heard about the state mandate of small business retirement plans that have more than 5 employees must offer a business retirement plan of some sort. The state offers a Roth IRA as an alternative if you do not. So
right.
the reality is, if you have 5 employees or more, you should. The state is encouraging you to open a retirement plan, and you can do a lot better than a Roth.
Right. And
So
that's an option that you're literally forced into.
forced
Right.
into
Right.
right.
So, and I don't mean to be disparaging towards the state, but it's a horrible plan, right?
It, it,
You have no choices as an employee about how, your money, should you elect to participate in this plan, how your money is invested. You literally have it's a Roth and that's it, right? And that's not
correct.
helping your tax situation,
Correct. I
right?
mean, the if the state is offering a Roth IRA, you could do much better. And in fact, by offering a business retirement plan, you can get sizable tax credits that will help you defer the cost of setting up something that's much better than a Roth.
Agreed. Well, let's start talking about some of those better options. So a business owner has several options. The first one we're going to talk about here is something called a SEP IRA, and SEP stands for Simplified Employee Pension. So get give us the give us the big overview, or how does a SEP IRA work, and why would a business owner be interested in this particular plan, and what are the benefits of that?
So, like anything, originally the SEP was set up as a retirement plan for small business owners that was relatively straightforward to set up. So that's why it has the name that it does. Like everything has an acronym. So the simplified employee pension was designed to give the small business owner an opportunity to save money, uh, but it's an older design. These first came out in the 1970s, and as of today, they're relatively unpopular because other alternative plans have come out. Now that
Hmm.
said, one of the real pros is that you can set this up fairly late in the tax year and still get it into the tax year for which you're planning.
Right. So you have until the due date of your tax return. Let's just say you're operating as an LLC or some form of a corporation, or the extended due date, whichever is later. So that gives you a little bit more time here, but it is more flexible, and sometimes this is where we end up with a client, right? In that, they haven't done anything during the year. They have way more profit than what they had planned on. They owe a lot more. And so they're scrambling to look for something that could lower their tax liability. And this is because of that, being able to set it up late in the year. This is sometimes where we end up, right? Is
Right,
at
and
with the SEP.
as your slide makes plain, there are this is an employer contribution only,
Right,
and even though the contribution limits are higher than it is for an IRA or a Roth, it's still limited to a fraction of your compensation. You're only allowed to put in 40% of your total compensation into this plan.
right.
So
So
even though the contribution limit is higher than the simple or higher than the IRA, it's not as high as some newer plans.
right. I think one of the things that sometimes causes concern with a business owner, especially if they're trying to do this at the last minute, as just a desperate act to try and reduce their liability, is that you have to do this equally for all employees, right? So you can't pick and choose, right? So it's kind of like a Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all.
Right.
So you've got to put in, and so you can't favor an employee and say, well, I'm going to give this guy so much and this other person less than that. It has to be the same percentage. So it can't be more than 25% of like your of their wages, right? So if somebody, an earner had $10,000, right, then the most that you could contribute is 2,500 bucks. But you have to use the same percentage for all the employees. So, and then that's a big check to write all at once. The upside is that it's a complete 100% business deduction. It will reduce your business income, which may be subject to the self-employment tax if you're operating as a sole proprietor. If you're operating as some form of a corporation or a partnership, et cetera, still, 100% deduction, which lowers taxable income and thereby lowers your tax liability to the federal government and the state government. So it's the highlights, I guess, really, James, are it's easy to do. It's easy to set up, uh, but you have to do the same for everybody, and it's completely funded by the employer, right? So this is a check you're
No,
writing right out of the company.
no employee contributions on this plan.
Right, right. It's all 100% the
It's probably
employer.
it's probably most attractive to a self-employed or maybe self-employed person and their spouse. That's where it seems to be the most attractive.
Right. Right. So I kind of, and I'd say this jokingly, I kind of think of this plan as I call it the Denny's plan, right? Now, I don't dislike Denny's, right? Everybody likes the Grand Slam breakfast, but Denny's is not someplace you go. It's someplace you end up, right?
Usually at 3 o'clock, usually at
At
2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the
But
morning, right? You know, so a lot of times this is where you end up because you have failed to plan. You really haven't you haven't you know really locked down your business plan for the year, and so this is where you end up because you end up in my office or some other tax professional, and they slide the numbers across to you and you're in shock, and you're looking for any way to try and hold on to some of that money and not give it to the federal or state government. So it has its place, but it's really not the best option for a business owner, right?
great. Again, it's an older design. These came out in the 1970s. And as newer plans have been created, these fell out of favor. At one
Yeah,
point, this was the solution, but when the introduction of the simple IRA came out in the 1980s, then this became less popular.
yeah, agreed. All right, well, let's talk about a newer plan, the simple IRA. Give us the rundown on this.
So again, this is another one of these crazy acronyms: the Simplified Incentive Match Plan for employees. So it's based on an IRA as kind of the chassis, if you will. It's for smaller employees, so it's limited to businesses that have less than 100 employees. And you can, in this particular design, you match the the employee's contribution dollar for dollar up to a percentage.
Right.
So in most designs, this is a dollar for dollar match up to 3% of compensation.
Right. You can do 1%, 2%, or 3%
Three
as the
percent
the
being the maximum.
employer. Right. 3% being the maximum. You can choose the 1% or 2%, but there's a limit as to how many years you can keep that level before you're compelled to move to the 3%, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So
Good.
the one nice thing about the simple is the contribution limits are fairly high. They're about $20,000 for this year, and there is a catch up provision for older employees. So that's pretty nice. If you have an older employee and there is an actual catch up uh,
Yeah.
for its contributions.
And there's this unusual thing for if you have an employee between the ages of 60 and 63, there's yet another catch-up provision for those people 60 to 63.
Yeah, I believe that was for last year, Tom. Is that still current?
I believe it is still current.
Okay.
We just we just put some clients wrapped up their simple contributions for the year, and
Okay.
that's still current. So now to be clear, when an employee contributes, right, then the employer is making a deduction from their paycheck, right? And
Right.
then they take that money and then send it over to the investment company, whatever company that is, Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, there's dozens of them out there. And so does the employee get any options as to how they can have their money invested? Do they have to just take whatever the employer has set up, or do they have
Now,
some
so
options?
they have a lot of options. In most cases, simple IRAs are sponsored by uh, mutual fund companies, so you would have access to the entire lineup of funds that are available at that mutual fund company.
Okay.
So if it's one of the most popular is American Funds, and they have hundreds of funds that you can choose from.
Right. So now
The
the
one
benefit, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the takeaways with a simple is when they make a contribution to when an employee makes a contribution to the simple, there's no vesting. They own all of those funds from day one. So if an employer puts $1 into their simple IRA, the employee owns that dollar the moment it hits their account.
So they could, if they wanted to, just take that money and say roll it over to some other investment company then, right? Without any
Oh,
tax consequence of
yes,
doing that? Right.
correct. I,
Okay.
I do not encourage people to take early distributions
Right, right.
for
We
obvious
don't
reasons.
we don't want to do that,
One,
but
you lose the opportunity to save, and you're going to pay a 10% penalty. But
right,
unlike a 401k, when an employee makes a contribution to a simple IRA, they own it 100% of that contribution from the very moment they make that hits the
right.
account.
So
So
the benefit then to the employee is let's just make some math easy here and say I earn $50,000 a year. I choose to contribute $10,000 to my employer's simple IRA. When I get my W-2 form at the end of the year, my W-2 form is not going to say $50,000, is it? It's going to
no,
say,
you've
right,
reduced your income.
right. So my W-2, so I'm really getting taxed on 40,000 because I chose to take that other 10 and put it into, my retirement account. So that's the advantage to the employee, right? They're going to see a lower amount, on their W-2 form, lower by the amount that they've contributed, up to, the maximum for whatever it is for that year. And that's, of course, always changing, year by year. But so what's the benefit then to the employer, right? Because the employer is still paying me $50,000 and he or she is going to deduct that $50,000 on their business income tax return as compensation to me, plus all the related employment taxes. So what's the benefit to the employer here?
One of the nice things for an employer in a simple plan is, one, the contribution limits are pretty significant compared to other plans. The administrative burden, all the costs of the plan are borne by the employees. Um, so there are the administrative costs to set one of these plans up is as low as it gets. Each employee bears the cost of setting one of these plans up, but the costs are so low. And the other thing is, if there's any type of the rules to comply with this plan, the government gives you a tax advantaged vehicle. There are rules that we have to follow, but they are very, very minimal. If
Right.
you want an easy to set up plan that has almost no risk to the employee, or this is a great choice.
Yeah.
The IRS actually publishes something called the Simple IRA Fix It Guide. So let's say you made a contribution that was a little slower. Maybe you put it in 40 days after the person actually was paid. You know, in the IRS's own rule book, Fix It Guide, it says figure out why you did it. Don't do it again. The burden of proof is non-existent. It's a very, very forgiving plan. There are not a lot of onerous rules that you have to follow.
So and also then we should again talk about the three R's, right? As an
Sure.
employer, right? if you're not offering a retirement plan to your employees could be sort of attracted away to other employers, not just for more money, but because they offer other benefits like a retirement plan. So, you can use this to recruit, reward, and retain the employees that you do have. So again, you're not, if you don't have a retirement plan like this, you're really not as competitive as your other businesses, like yours that your employees could be attracted away to. So I think this is a really important, and it's so easy, right? It's
Yeah,
how
when you
long?
if you're
Go
looking
ahead.
to recruit people and that is your primary objective, the simple is a great choice because it gives you an easy retirement plan that is of real benefit to them because they can save more money with this than they could on their own, and the costs are really very, very minimal
Like just for instance, what is it going to cost an employer to set up a simple plan?
in terms of actual, like they have to write a check.
Yeah,
Zero,
if I want you to help
zero,
me zero, I don't have to write a
zero.
check for anything.
Nope, nothing.
Wow. Awesome.
So the
Eh,
the and here's the other thing is when you have this is considered a pooled plan, so that the plan gets bigger, the costs for the administration actually go down.
So how much time is it going to take out of my workday to get this set up for my employees?
So the paperwork is pretty minimal, and that's filled out by the employees. The real time burden for the owner would be when they have to go in and make the contributions into the retirement plan
Hmm.
for the employees. But most of the firms have a portal that's designed specifically for this, and it's really, really quite streamlined.
Right. Now here we are in December. Can I set one of these things up with you tomorrow?
No, it's too late. You missed it.
Okay. So there's a window of opportunity here, so that you have to get this done before October 1st, right? Because it has to
Correct.
be in place for 90 days within the tax year to make it effective for that year. If I want to get this set up with you for tomorrow for next year, starting, the following year, can I do that?
Absolutely.
There we
The
go.
other the other thing about the simple IRAs, it's kind of unusual. They do run on a calendar basis. So if you offer a simple IRA this year and you are getting ready to move to a 401k, then you have to give notice to your employees that you will terminate the simple uh, on that calendar year. So that's kind of an unusual, that's a somewhat unusual quirk with simples.
Right. And it's you can't have two plans active within the same year. You're compelled to terminate one because you're not permitted by law to have more than one.
Correct. You can't
Right.
have a simple IRA and a SEP and a 401k.
Okay. And
Make a
so
choice.
if you do terminate the simple, right, as you said earlier, everybody owns all their money, right? They can take their
Right.
account and they can leave it as is where it's at, or
Absolutely.
they can hook up with an investment advisor like you and maybe make a choice to move that money somewhere else, right?
Correct. All simple IRAs, the assets have to stay in the plan for at least 2 years before you roll them out.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Un-
let's talk about another option that employers have that's even better than this one, and so that's the 401k plan. Now, pretty much I think this has become kind of a household word, hasn't it? Like everybody, I don't think there's
Yeah.
anybody that has never heard of, a 401k. They might not really know what it is or understand, what it does or, how powerful it can be for you as an individual, but they've heard of it. So walk me through, tell me about the 401k plan. What do I need to know about this?
Well, the 401k became very popular after the demise of traditional pension plans in the 1980s. And one of the reasons I got into retirement planning myself is that my father worked for the International Topographical Union, which at one time was the most powerful union in the United States. It
Really?
represented printers all across the United States, mostly in big city newspapers, but also in a lot of different kinds of printing presses. And it was the high technology of its time. But it was such a powerful union that it actually imposed the 40-hour work week on the United States. So in 1910, the Topographical Union demanded a 40-hour work week, and over time that was imposed on the rest of the United States by that union. So that's how powerful that union was. My father's pension plan under the Topographical Union went bust in 1972 when there was a scandal involving so the treasurer of the union literally took the money and went to South America. So that was an example of embezzlement that brought a retirement plan down. But there were also problems with 401ks where employee participants were suing the owners for lackluster performance in their investments. So over time, lawsuits against retirement plan sponsors caused the pension plan to go into a long, slow death. So pension plans peaked in the early 1980s, but by the 1990s were largely a thing of the past. So the 401k became the default replacement for pension plans because in a 401k, the participant chooses the investments. So it's no longer the responsibility for the sponsor to pick the investments. In all 401ks, the participant themselves has to pick an investment that's appropriate for them. And that's where the education of your employees really comes into play and becomes very important. You, as a sponsor of a 401k, you are required to offer educational opportunities so that the participants can learn what makes a great investment or why they should invest in a particular way.
Okay.
So
So go ahead. I'm sorry, please.
the takeaway with the 401k is these can be so highly customized that you can really create a plan that fits your business goals better than any other plan. The simple IRA has very limited customization, but a 401k can be customized to really do a lot of different things. If you want to retain employees, you can put in a feature where the employee doesn't get the full benefit of their retirement planning or retirement savings unless they stay with your employee with your firm for a specific number of years. Often 6 years is a very common. So if you want to
Mhm.
retain employees, you can design it to do that. If you want to have, if you want to reward your employees with profit sharing, that's a great feature and very popular with 401ks. If you want a Roth feature on your retirement plan, that that is a feature of 401k. So no matter what you're trying to do, you can customize the 401k to do the specific things that as an employer you want to do.
So the 401k works just like the simple in that the employee elects to participate in the program. They choose to have how much withheld from their salary up to whatever the limit is for that particular year. And I want to avoid talking about, limits because, they change year to year, and we'd like this information to be kind of evergreen in a manner of speaking. Then that money comes out of my paycheck. It goes over to the investment company. I get, my employer matches, puts money in my account on my behalf, and then I get a W-2 at the end of the year that's for some amount less than what my real salary is. And so then I get choices of how my money is invested. And do I get more choices under the 401k than I do, say, the simple?
Yeah, generally there's a somewhat broader um, choice of plans or choice of investments. Very often in a 401k, as a fiduciary advisor, I will always try to offer the lowest cost investment options available. So in most of the plans that I design, we're using Vanguard funds or very low cost Fidelity funds. Um, you can get a lot of really great choices in a 401k. But as a sponsor, you are responsible for putting together an investment lineup that is appropriate for your business. So that's where I can really help employees or employers uh, design a fund lineup that will give their employees some great choices at a great value.
So if an employee, let's say, is socially conscious and has concerns about, say, climate change, or, and forgive me, I don't remember, I think it's a S, is it social or like
ESG,
ES,
ESG,
right? Tell us what that means.
ESG stands for environmental, social, and so it used to mean social. Now it means sustainability and governance. So
Okay.
environmental is straightforward. That's the E in ESG. Sustainability, you know, speaks to energy concerns, and then governance. How is a company run? How do they treat their employees? Is it a ethical company? Do they have good controls on how they run their firm? Um, Now, there's a big caution here on ESG because if you're a sponsor and you decide to offer ESG funds, very often ESG investments will have a lower return than a non ESG investment. And so
Mhm.
very often their costs are somewhat higher because there's more screening involved, right? So if you're a sponsor, I would suggest that you do not offer ESG,
Mhm.
right?
But
Because you have
it could be there though. My employer
you
could
you,
have
you
those
could.
options. Uh, okay.
Yeah,
And
I would actually encourage you as a sponsor to pick, a broad base of investments that are suitable for a large group of investors investors because as a sponsor, you're putting together an investment lineup that you have to stand behind,
right.
right? If you're a sponsor of a retirement plan, you are a fiduciary. So you should proceed with great caution. And in most cases, I would suggest that an ESG investments, if you want to invest in ESGs, that's the place for your personal investments, your IRA. I do it with clients all the time. We screen for a variety of factors, including environmental, sustainability, religious. But if you're a sponsor of a 401k, I would caution you that offering an ESG fund is very precarious. A
Okay,
great
well,
example, a great example is BlackRock had an ESG fund that was almost indistinguishable from a large cap growth fund, but it charged 6 times the price. So if you're the plan sponsor, you have to have uh, great care in picking your investments. In most cases, you want to pick broadly diversified or across a broad sector of different investment styles and objectives, and keep your costs as low as possible.
low cost makes sense, right?
Sure.
That's, uh, let's talk about
Returns
some, I'm sorry.
returns vary, but costs are forever. You know.
That's
So
true. I hadn't thought about that.
right.
Uh,
But the fact is, if you offer a business retirement plan, you are a fiduciary and you have to follow much more specific rules about how you manage the plan. And that's why the administrative requirements on a 401k are quite a bit higher, because now we're trying to comply with what's known as ERISA, the
mhm,
Employee Retirement and Investment Safety Act,
right.
ERISA.
Yeah.
So a specific body of law that's designed to protect participants.
Good. Let's talk about some administrative things like I'm too late in the year to open a 401k right now, right? Because it's not 90 days, but I could get this in place for next year, right?
Correct. Unless of course you're the only employee. But in
Right.
most cases, the 401k, you have to get if someone was, for instance, if someone was transitioning from a simple to a 401k for next year, they would send out a letter to their employees that said, "Hey, we're terminating the 401k, or
Hmm.
excuse me, we're terminating the simple IRA, and we're moving to a 401k in January." I just sent a letter out for a sponsor this morning saying that exact thing.
Hmm.
So, um, so with the administrative requirements, you should not allow. Certainly, you have to comply with the rules, right? But it's gotten easier to do that. There are more 401ks now that are more automated and will actually help the sponsor meet their requirements than ever before.
Hmm.
So a lot of Principal has brought out an IRA, a 401k that resides on the internet. It's completely electronic, and a lot of the administrative burdens are taken care of by the investment firm.
Okay. And
So
one of those administrative requirements is tax returns, right? Because retirement plans require, at least certain kinds require 5,500, right? Which
correct.
typically the investment company takes care of that for you, and that's part of the cost essentially that you pay. Speaking of which, what kind of a check am I going to have to write to get this 401k plan open for next year?
So it would vary between $1,500 for a well featured plan, but not a super sexy plan. Maybe it doesn't have quite the website isn't quite as fully featured as some other plans. But say $1,500 up to approximately $3,000 to set up a well featured um, retirement plan with a website and monthly quarterly statements and an online access and good investment choices.
Okay. The next time I refer a client to you for this, I'm going to tell them make sure that James tells you about the super sexy plans. Uh, be,
Well, I mean, the reality is if you have 1,000 employees and they're scattered across 4 or 5 states, you might want a website a website that has more features on it.
Right.
Maybe it has more education on it. But even the most basic retirement plan that I offer or that I recommend costs less than $2,000. And if you set one up, you can get a tax uh, credit, not a deduction, but an actual credit for the first 3 years of your plan.
Awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was almost going to slip my mind. So, in short, the federal government is going to help you from a cost perspective establish the 401k plan.
That's correct. For the first 3 years, it would fully offset the cost of most retirement plans.
Awesome. Great.
And speaking of the 5,500, now on some older style plans, the 5,500 has to be filed by what's known as a TPA. So a TPA is a third party administrator, and very often they would do a lot of the administrative uh, heavy lifting with a 401k.
Hmm.
Um, but the trend in the industry is to get towards a more automated plan. And so with many plans, a TPA is either not required or it's already built into the plan itself. So the use of a third party administrator has become less and less common because it's just like any other technology.
Right.
It's replacing some of the manual labor that was associated with retirement plans from 20 years ago. Today, a TPA is usually brought in as a consultant when when you have a larger plan and perhaps you want to do a cash balance payment on top of your 401k, or you have a larger business where you
Right.
have other types of features that you want to offer.
Good. Well, let's move on and talk
The
about
one
the. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about any 401k, whether it's a solo 401k or a traditional 401k or a safe harbor 401k, in all of these cases, don't let the idea of that it's complex or that it's burdensome prevent you from doing it. It's easier to run a 401k today than it ever has been. There is no reason even the smallest businesses shouldn't offer a retirement plan.
I agree completely. And so the solo 401k is sort of in that same, along that line, right? Relatively easy to do with your help. But this is really designed for somebody different, right? That maybe this is what like an attorney that works by himself, or maybe or herself, and works with their spouse, something like that, but has no employees. And so this is an option that even gives them more flexibility and even more, more, levels that they can contribute and have the company match and so on. So this is an option. It's basically the same thing as the 401k, except you can't have any employees. But you can have two spouses, right?
Correct.
Um, and but there's a higher amount allowed, basically for the company contribution, right? So the
Correct.
company can contribute more. And so I should add, then that becomes a deduction, a tax deductible, amount that we would report on your probably your corporate income tax return, but it works a little differently if you're a sole proprietor. But so you have that option too. But again, this one's a little different in that I could do this now, couldn't I, James, here before the end of
You,
the year?
you can actually do this after the first of the year. Under the
So that,
Secure under the Secure 2.0 Act, you can actually set up a solo 401k after the end of the tax year. So you can actually do this in January. Now, up until last year, you had to have this set up before 12/31. 12/31 was the deadline. But with the
mm,
passage of Secure 2.0, now the deadline is before you file your taxes. So this has gotten even more flexible.
yeah, I really like this. I've got we have quite a few joint clients, but I've got a few people in this, mostly in the professional services, like architects and doctors and therapists. A lot of people, of course, that work by themselves. And this has been a real handy tool to have in my toolbox.
Yeah, this is if you are a husband and wife and you work in a business and you have no other employees, this is a home run. This is the only retirement plan that allows you to deduct 100% of your compensation up to the limit.
Right.
So if you're a husband and wife and maybe you neglected saving money because you had kids or you were building your business, if you're a husband and wife working together in one business, this is a great way to catch up.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
I I
talking
agree.
limits of over $70,000 potentially.
Awesome.
So this is and the interesting thing is because you have no employees that you can discriminate against, and that's the legal term. Um, the the IRS really takes a very light touch on the solo 401ks because the IRS rules for all retirement plans are designed so that the participant, the employee is protected, and that the employer doesn't just put a lot of money into a plan and he doesn't take care of his employees. But with a solo 401k, you have no common law employees. There's no one to discriminate. You can't discriminate against yourself. So this becomes a really great tool if you are an architect or a dentist where your wife works in the office and you have no other common law employees. This is a fantastic tool. Maybe
Yeah.
you're a land. I have several landscapers that just absolutely love this plan.
Awesome. I really, really like this. Well,
And
let's
the
let's
odd thing is, this is probably the most overlooked option that I see.
Oh, I agree. I agree. We've got a lot of solo people, a lot of solo attorneys, therapists, mental health therapists. We have kind of a large calling in that too, and they could use something like this because very frequently they work by themselves or they
So with
have a
here you
spouse
have
involved.
sure you have your salary deduction, and then you have profit sharing, and then you have catch up.
Right.
So again, it doesn't get any better than being able to contribute 100% of your compensation up to the limit. There is no other retirement plan that allows you to do that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, let's start to land the plane here, Jim, because we don't want to make this too long, but I think there's some considerations here. Let's discuss choosing the right plan for you. What's your number one thing that when you talk to prospective clients in trying to help them choose the plan that's best for them?
Sure. Try to think of what are your primary goals. Are you trying to have a low cost plan that just kind of that you can offer something, or is it important to save more money for taxes? just write down your three primary goals. I want to offer a plan that's low cost and just get my foot in the door. Or I have a plan, I have a plan, but I really need tax mitigation. Or hey, the profits on my business vary a lot, and I want to be able to offer a profit sharing to reward the employees that help us do what we do. Um, so figure out what are your goals, and then pick the plan that fits, that accomplishes those goals, but minimizes your costs and your administrative burden.
Great advice. All right, so let's wrap this up, Jim.
Well, and
Now go ahead.
the one thing I would say is if you're a sponsor of a retirement plan, the law considers you to be a fiduciary. So you have to look out for the best interest of your participants. So if you're a sponsor, the bad news is you're a fiduciary. So I would suggest that you work only with an advisor that is themselves a fiduciary, because that's a higher level of standard of care that he or she will offer to you and your employees. This is complicated stuff. You shouldn't have to worry about whether or not your advisor is working in your best interest.
Yeah. Great information, James. I really appreciate you being on the presentation today. So now, if viewers want to reach out to you, here's your contact information. I have to, if you'll forgive me, I didn't just never even occurred to me about a website. Do you have a website?
Sure. James Heavey Wealth, jheaveywealth.com.
Okay, so just a Google search probably will help to find you. So if you have concerns that you maybe you feel like your current retirement plan that you have in place isn't really very efficient and it's not doing what you need it to do, and you want somebody to look at that, James, you're available to consult with people about their current plan and maybe changing to another plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, one of the things about retirement plans in general is they've been around for a long time. There have been more changes in the retirement landscape in the last 2 years than in the last 20. So if you haven't reviewed your retirement plan, one, that's already a problem because as a fiduciary, you need to understand your plan. And if you aren't clear about whether or not what your costs are, or whether or not, if you haven't reviewed your investment lineup in the last few years, I would be thrilled to give you an analysis of your plan. I can actually give you a numeric score from 0 to 100 and find out whether your plan is a darling or whether it's a dog.
Okay. That's great.
So
So if you have those concerns, here's your contact information for James. If you're not a client and you think maybe you're paying too much in taxes, the reality is you probably are. And so, my function is to, I look at, your total picture, for your business, your individual, and as a tax advisor, I affect the outcome of your tax return. I don't react to it. And so we do a lot of work together, mostly through education, where I, educate you about your choices in the tax code. And one of those great tools that I have is, having a guy like James that I can turn to when I can see, a retirement opportunity that a client's not taking advantage of, and that they could becoming more tax efficient by making some changes to either establishing a retirement plan because they don't have one, or making some changes, a tune up, if you will, to your retirement plan, which can also help you make you more tax efficient. So James Heavey Wealth Advisors, thank you so much for joining me
Tom,
today,
thanks so
and
much for the opportunity.
you're very welcome, and I hope we'll get a time, get an opportunity to do it again sometime soon, rather.
Great, love
Okay.
to.
All right. Thanks for joining me.